I'm Hemant Mehta.
And I'm Jessica Blimke.
And you're listening to the podcast for FriendlyAtheist.com. You can now listen to all of our episodes and see show notes at FriendlyAtheistPodcast.com.
By the way, we now have a merchandise shop on the website. So if you want your podcast swag, and you know you do, go to our website and click on the store tab. David Smalley is a former Christian musician who became an atheist after studying psychology, sociology, world religions, and his own faith. He soon became a secular activist. He was the editor-in-chief of Secular World and American Atheist magazines, the author of Baptized Atheist, and co-founder of AtheistAudiobooks.com. You may know him best from his incredibly popular podcast, Dogma Debate, which has tens of thousands of weekly subscribers. David, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
David, one of the things that I think a lot of your listeners, a lot of our listeners would probably know about you is that you do so many things. I mean, besides Dogma Debates, we also mentioned you do these atheist audiobooks where it makes these books more available to people in a different way, which is great. You also have, you run the Secular Media Network, which is like a collection of other blogs under that umbrella. Like, what's your schedule like that you're able to do all these things?
It's pretty crazy. I absolutely love what I do. I'm very fortunate to be able to do what I do. And I feel very, I guess, compelled and motivated to work nonstop, which could be a bad thing, I know. And I know sometimes whenever I don't get a lot of sleep or I start getting sick on a regular basis, that's my body telling me to slow down a little bit. But, it's just I'm having so much fun. It's just my schedule is, Wednesdays is pretty much 14 to 16 hours of planning the live show, going live, doing the live show, then doing the after show, and then hanging out with the guest afterwards. I usually, wake up around 12 or 1 o'clock and walk into the studio by 1:30 or 2. And from that moment on, I'm nonstop until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's Wednesdays. All the rest of the week is contracts, buying licenses from publishers, negotiating those contracts, recording audiobooks, editing audiobooks, doing the proofing, editing articles for Secular News Network, putting together charity things that we're going to talk about on the show, dealing with our new thing that we just released, I Am Fourth Fund, where we want to be able to help people going through crisis. And then we've got these Tiny Thinkers books that are coming out. They're science books for kids, and we're putting the final touches on our first book called Charlie and the Tortoise. These are stories where basically we're telling stories of real life scientists as if they were going through their adventures as children. And the kids reading the books get to go along the adventure of Charlie and the tortoise, and Charlie as he goes to the Galapagos Islands and learns how the finches are different, but they're still the same. And this tortoise, who's been there 200 years, can tell him all about the changes that he's seen. And we have these similar putting out. It's just a lot of fun. So no, Hemant, I don't get a lot of sleep, but I have a whole lot of fun.
Jeez, Hemant and I do this like 3 hours once a month, and I'm exhausted. I don't know how you keep up with it.
I'm imagining, by the way, like Albert Einstein with his Albert Einstein head and a
mustache.
baby body.
Yeah.
Because I hope that's what it is.
See, it's all possible. We'll be calling you for that one here in a little bit.
Score.
So what I'm interested in is, and I guess we see this a lot, of like people who grew up very devoutly Christian or involved in the Christian community in some way, the pendulum swings all the way the other way, that they discover they're an atheist and they become an atheist activist. So for you, what was that transition like?
I wanted the truth, and I wanted to share the truth when I found the truth. And when I originally found the truth of Christianity, I felt compelled to share that. And I think that's pretty common. I think that a lot of times atheists will sort of, bash on Christians for proselytizing and knocking on doors. And you know what? We do it all the time. You go, hey, man, have you seen this movie? You've got to go see this movie. I saw it and it changed my life. Or have you read this book? You've got to read this book. It's an amazing book. This author is awesome. Or you're out in public and you go, oh my God, she's beautiful. Look at her. She's amazing. We share things with each other all the time that we enjoy. Have you tasted this? You've got to taste this, even when it's horrible. This is disgusting. You've got to taste this. So I totally understand when Christians are knocking on doors sharing what they feel is their gospel or their truth. So I understand it. And that was me. I was knocking on doors and I was sharing my truth with people. And, I started to wonder, do I have the truth? Do I really have the truth? And, from being a very young kid, 7, 8 years old, the truth was important to me. I used to hear my family members arguing about things that were facts, like how far away the earth is from the sun. And I would hear my mom and my sister going back arguing about it, and I would go grab the encyclopedia. I would look up the answer and say, guys, you don't need to fight about it. There's a truth out there somewhere. And they would make fun of me. They called me Encyclopedia Boy. And would make it a bad thing. They would roll their eyes. Oh, there he goes again, Encyclopedia Boy. And I was fine with that. It sounded like a superhero to me. But nonetheless, I was interested in the truth. And when I first started having doubts in Christianity and started to realize, that reading the Bible, attending these meetings, talking with theology professors, and doing a deep dive religious study for all these years, when I started to find out that the truth is actually even sexier than God's, that space and evolution and science and all these wonderful things have very good explanations for why we're here and how we're able to interact and why life is so precious. I felt that same passion. Hey guys, you've got to taste this. This is amazing. So I enjoy talking with Christians about what a wonderful life we have as humanists. And so my passion of sharing the truth hasn't gone away. I really got excited about it when I found out what the real truth was.
It sounds like you have almost a begrudging respect for those door-to-door proselytizers because they are following their passions.
Absolutely. You know what? When we were filming the movie My Week in Atheism, which I was a co-producer on in 2014, I had a street preacher at one of the debates during filming asked me, or after the filming stopped, he came to me afterwards and he said, I have a lot of people tell me that I shouldn't be street preaching and I shouldn't be yelling out to people on the street. You seem like a pretty nice atheist. What should I say to those people? Can you tell me, how can I defend myself? And I said, according to Matthew 7:21, if you're not doing the will of Father, which is bringing more people to Christ, he's going to disown you when you die anyway. So you tell these atheists who say you shouldn't be preaching that you're only being true to your faith by sharing your faith with others. Now, I will warn you on the flip side that you probably shouldn't be screaming stuff like you're going to hell for wearing that skirt. So keep your messages positive, and you're going to hear a lot less negative feedback from atheists.
Do you think he listened?
I hope so.
Where was this?
I don't know, but I hope so.
Where did you meet this guy?
He was at University of North Texas.
Oh, gotcha.
He was part of the Christian group at UNT, and we were doing a filming session there when I debated John Christie.
Oh, gotcha.
We were taking questions from the crowd.
Because there used to be a guy, Hemmant, did you ever, Hemmant and I are both in Chicago, and he used to be on State Street outside of that old Navy. There was a guy who had like a microphone and a little amp, and he would yell, he would do that. He would be like, oh, you're smoking that cigarette, you're going to be burning in hell. He did something more clever with like something about cigarettes and hell and burning. There was a pun there. But he was just the worst, and he was always so negative and would like yell at people.
You always wonder who they're converting. Like,
right,
they
exactly.
can't possibly be effective.
But he was out there like clockwork every day, although they moved to that old Navy. I wonder where he is now.
He followed the old Navy. He
Well,
probably
I think it's important for us to protect the freedom of speech for those who we also disagree with.
Oh, sure.
Because that's the best way that we're going to be able to keep that freedom of speech for ourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. It's, I don't begrudge him his freedom of speech. I just found him personally annoying.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do that with college preachers, too, where they're like, they're not going to stop them. They have a right to be there, assuming they filled out whatever permit applications they needed. Mm-hmm. But the best way is to fight back by being more clever. Like, have different signs that respond to them. Have the bingo card ready to go because you could have fun with it. David,
Yeah, absolutely.
what when you've been doing your podcast and you've been doing it for a while now, which episodes have resonated the most with your audience? Which ones do you keep hearing about, or which ones not just get the most listens, but which ones do you think have meant the most to your listeners?
You know, it's funny that you say that. One show, as far as the most downloads, one show did. It's got way more than almost triple any other show I've ever had. It was when Rick Perry was indicted on charges, and I came in studio by myself on a random day and just decided to throw down with all my information about Rick Perry. And it was just me alone with the microphone and my producer on the phone. That, for some reason, has the most downloads. I haven't heard that it's changed a lot of lives, but the one that I hear about most are the ones where I say you don't have to be angry at Christians. A lot of atheists, rightfully so, when they determine that most of what they've been told is not true, they feel like they've been lied to. And it's important to distinguish being told an untrue statement and being lied to are two different things. Your parents raising you to be afraid of God, a lot of times they honestly thought they were doing the best thing for you. So it's important when you discover the truth not to use that as hatred and anger against those believers, but feel your anger. It's okay to be angry. But is it okay to respond with anger? What good is it going to do for you and your relationship with them and the movement as a whole, atheists as a whole, humanism as a whole? What's it going to do for everybody if you carry that anger around with you and lash out at believers? So you really have an opportunity to change someone else's mind. And anytime I sign my books, my book is Baptized Atheist, by the way, and anytime I sign that book, I always write in there, the next mind you change could change thousands. You never know if the Christian sitting across from you is going to be the next Christopher Hitchens. You have no idea what that person's capable of. So being respectful to that person, understanding that you don't have to have a lot of anger when you're talking with them, and that you can hear them say things that are offensive, process the anger, and respond by saying, do you understand how people could find that offensive, is a lot more effective than yelling at them, you're a delusional maniac and you should go kill yourself. That's not quite as effective, right? So the episodes I hear most about are the conversations I have with Christians where I'm respectful. And I tell them, I disagree with what you have to say, but I'll always give you a platform to say it as long as you're okay with being respectfully challenged. Because people hear my conversations with these Christians, and they take this sort of peaceful, diplomatic, Socratic method back to their family members, and that's how they respond to grandma and their aunt and their mom and dad. And I've received feedback like, wow, after I heard your episode on XYZ, I was able to go back and talk to my mom about being a lesbian. And for the first time in 10 years, we now have a relationship. And that kind of stuff means the world to me. And one other one that stands out is one that I've gotten a little bit of trouble for, but one that has by far been the most commented on and the most life-changing for a lot of people. The short story is I was watching Discovery Channel with my daughter, and they were doing this whole documentary on mummification. And there was this man who was an atheist, just happened to be an atheist, who said since he didn't believe in an afterlife, he wanted to donate his body to science. And he was dying of an illness. He knew he had less than 6 months to live. And he was very, upbeat about it, he was very atheisty about it. Didn't really seem to fear death at all. And it was just like, I'm going to make the best of this, and I'm going to donate my body to science. And how cool would it be to be a mummy? Because what they were doing is they were testing to see if they could replicate the methods of ancient Egyptians and improve upon those by actually improving upon the mummification process. And he donated his body to have this happen. But he was alive for the beginning of the process and went through it all. And my daughter and I were watching this. She was very young at the time. I think she was about 8 or 9 years old. And halfway through the episode, he dies, and they showed him being wheeled in on this silver table, the silver gurney, and they just showed his feet. And something clicked in her head, and she knew that he was dead. And it was something about the finality of death. For the first time, this 8 or 9 year old girl had ever had to envision that that's what it was like. And she grabbed her knees and pulled them to her chest, and she said, "Daddy, I don't want to die." And I thought, I have to talk to her. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know how I'm going to address this. I have to talk to her, and I want to capture this moment. Not only for me, but for other parents struggling with this. Let me go talk to my daughter. I'll record the conversation and just see what happens. And being careful not to exploit my daughter's curiosity, but at the same time, being vulnerable to my listeners and going, I don't know what I'm doing either. None of us have everything figured out when it comes to these tough conversations. And it was one of the most beautiful interactions I've ever had with a human being. It felt amazing. And at one point during the conversation, she was basically asking me, "So what do I do?" And kids at school make fun of me for not going to church, and they say they're going to live forever and I'm not, or the devil's going to put fire on me and I don't even know what a devil is. And we had some really interesting conversations, and in the end I just said, "Look, you know when we're at the holiday party and I tell you that we're about to leave, so you better join the other kids in dancing while you can because we're about to load the car?" And she says, "Yes." And I said, "And you're always afraid to dance because you don't want to look silly in front of people, so you stand off to the side and you wait, and all these other kids are dancing, and you never get to have that fun." And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "And then I load the car," and I say, "Okay, sweetie, the car's loaded. If you don't dance now, you're not going to have a chance because we're saying goodbye to everybody." And I go load the car, and you still don't dance. I said, "And then what happens when I come to you and I say, we've said goodbye to everyone, the car's loaded, the car's running, you have 30 seconds to dance, and we're leaving." I said, "What do you do then, sweetie?" She said, "Daddy, I dance." I said, "Exactly. This is our 30 seconds to dance. That's the best I can give you. This is our chance to leave the world better than we found it. This is our chance to love each other and to connect with other people and make the situation as positive as we possibly can. That's what we can do. This is our 30 seconds to dance." And it was life-changing for her. And from my inbox, it's been life-changing for a lot of my listeners. I believe that's episode 40, which was a very, very long time ago because we just finished up episode 208.
That's a really beautiful story. Does your daughter know that, she was part of that conversation that a lot of people heard?
Yeah. When we were on tour last time, I took her with me, and she met a couple in California. I believe we were in Los Angeles. And, no, it was Riverside. We were in Riverside, and she met a couple that walked up to her and me, held their baby up, who was about 2 years old, and said, "Because of your conversation with your daddy, you've made this little girl a better person, and you've made us better parents." And that was so touching to all of us, to my whole family, and to her. And she knows. I think she understands now that those conversations are really helpful to other people.
Do you think she'll go back and listen to that conversation when she's older?
I hope so. That's another part of me sort of dealing with my own concerns about not having an afterlife. What can I leave behind? I can leave behind memories. I can leave the world better than I found it. I can try to make this world as secular as possible and remove as much discrimination as possible. But every time I record my voice, every time I do a voiceover for an audiobook or record a 3.5, 4-hour show, this is hours and hours and hours of content that's going out there on record for her and my son both to listen to long after I'm gone. It's a way for me to be able to communicate with them long after I'm not on this planet anymore. So that's another reason that it really motivates me to do all of this work and to get all of this out there. I really hope she does. I hope her and Braden both go back and listen to these shows and listen to how they've impacted my life, because I talk about things I learned from them. And hopefully they can watch me grow through the audio, because, 5-6 years ago when all this started, I wasn't where I am today. So that's one way that I find solace in doing these recordings. If I die tomorrow, they're going to be listening to audio for a few years before they get caught up. So I like this concept of being able to leave a legacy, or leave something behind, so I can communicate with them and still talk to them long after I'm gone.
When your young daughter turns to you and says, Daddy, I don't want to die, do you see the appeal of saying, oh, sweetie, you won't die, you'll live forever in heaven at the right hand of Jesus? Do you see the appeal of being able to say that, or would that seem hollow? I mean, obviously from you it would seem hollow, but do you think that would really be comforting?
No, absolutely it's comforting, and that's why I think I empathize with believers. I get it. I understand how it is so comforting to be able to say that, but the reality is it's only comforting if you think about it for less than 10 seconds. And I don't want my daughter to stop there. I would rather my daughter be uncomfortable with the truth than live in ignorant bliss. Mm-hmm. And so, I get it. I get the comfort, but I like I said, from the time I was a little kid, the truth has just always been very important to me. And there are some people, believe it or not, the truth is just not that important to them. I've had members of my own family say, I'm happy with the information I have now, and I don't want to know anymore. Is that okay with you? And they don't want me to talk to them. They are okay with their position of ignorance. And, I don't understand that. I can't respect it. I don't understand it. It blows me away. But that's not me. I'm not okay with that, and I don't want to raise my daughter to be okay with that.
Has that, have your kids been confronted by other kids at school? Have they had these types of conversations and debates? I don't know if they're old enough to have them, but, I mean, what is the religious conversation like for those kids?
I'm really proud of them. My son Braden is 15. He is one of 4 producers that we have for the live radio show. He is in a control room outside of the studio, taking phone calls, listening to the show, helping get people back on the line when we have production issues. He's also one of our main audiobook editors. So as we're in the studio recording audiobooks, he's the one taking out all the mistakes. So he's very, very informed, way more than most 15-year-olds should be, especially because he also used to help out with Daryl Ray's podcast. Mm-hmm. So he knows lots of stuff about this. And Talissa is 11, and she has done science segments on the show and joined us for live radio broadcasts when we do live remotes on tour. We very much run this as a family business. And their mom, my partner, Brandy, she's the chief operating officer of Secular Media Group. So we run this as a family. We run it together, and we talk about this stuff all the time. We do Bible study as though we were a Christian family. We sit down and read the Bible and pull out verses and talk about what those verses mean and how they affect people and why people believe them. So my kids are little badasses when they go to school. They're very well informed, and neither one of them take a whole lot of crap. I remember my daughter coming home saying that some girl, she was sitting next to her best friend, and some girl, and if you listen to episode 40, you'll hear a bit of this. She's sitting next to some girl, and this other girl walked by her and said, "You shouldn't sit next to her. She's an atheist."
Oh, snap.
And Talissa, and that could be devastating for a lot of girls that age. And my daughter responded with, "She's been sitting next to me all year, and nothing's happened so far." and I love that. Just flip it on her head and go, "Why do you think that's an issue? There's no evidence at all to support your hypothesis."
Right. That's awesome.
I love that concept. And the other day, I was going to Braden's room. We kind of have crazy schedules. And I went to Braden's room, and I was going to knock on the door. It was like 2:30 in the morning. And I heard him playing his PlayStation, and I went, "Hey, this kid is up playing his PlayStation at 2:30 in the morning." And I went to go knock on his door to be dad and go, "Turn this off and get some sleep." And right before I knocked on the door, I heard him through the door go, "But why would you feel that way about gay people? It's not like they're making a decision." And I went, I'm going to let him play for a little bit longer.
He's talking to somebody. He's having that conversation.
yeah, he's out there throwing down on the PlayStation Network, arguing with somebody who's homophobic, and I'm like, I'm going to let him stay up a little bit longer. So I think these kids are going to do just fine.
Let me change gears for a second. I think a lot of people would love to do the sort of thing you're doing. They're very passionate about this topic. They love talking about this stuff, and maybe they have the equipment. They're ready to do YouTube. They're ready to do a podcast, whatever. They don't know necessarily how to be as successful as you are. So what advice do you give those people who are saying, how can I build my own network like this? How can I start a podcast that people will actually listen to?
Oh, wow. That's the magic wand right there.
Hemon's just asking for advice for our own show, actually, so don't let
Shut
him
up,
fool
don't
you.
give it away.
We've definitely come a long way. And I would say, more than anything, be patient. Don't be too hard on yourself. The growth is going to be slow. Don't start your show, expect, and then look up 4 months later and wonder why you don't have as many subscribers as Seth Andrews. This thing is very slow growing, and the more the market gets flooded, the even slower it's going to grow. Because we all love each other, we all want to connect with each other. But when Seth started his thing, he was one of the few people actually doing it, and I think there were a few others that weren't gaining as much attention. And I came out about 2 years after Seth, I think. And there still wasn't a whole lot of people in. Now, there are hundreds and hundreds of atheist podcasters, which is a great idea. It's a great thing. It really is. It's wonderful that many people have a voice. And we're always looking for new people to join our network and to cross-promote and to join the secular media group family. So I'm interested. Contact me, send me a link to your show. I'd love to listen to it. Maybe we can help you grow. But more than anything, be patient. Focus on quality over quantity. The way your show sounds is very important. The levels on your show are very important. We've struggled with that. We have a lot of different people in studio, and the levels are up and down because most of the people that are in my studio, it's the first time they've ever talked on air in any sort of setting, and the show is live. We don't go back and edit it later. So just be patient. Be patient. Invest in your equipment. Learn how to fix your technical problems, and understand that it's going to be organic. It's going to grow over time. Don't believe me? You go back and listen to the first episode of Dogma Debate, and then listen to about episode 200 or episode 100, and then listen to episode 208, and you tell me that there isn't growth there. So be patient and focus on quality over quantity. You don't need to put out 1 million episodes, but you should probably be consistent. And that's another thing I'll add to this. I think, and I would have to pull our numbers and check, I could be off by 1 or 2, but I think in 2014, out of 52 weeks, I believe we did 49 shows, which means we only had 3 weeks over the entire year where we didn't do an episode. So it's very important that people can rely on you, that they can depend on you. People connect with you. They feel like you're part of their family. A lot of people listening don't have anyone else, and they may be in a house full of fundamentalists, and this is how they get their escape. So when you go a month or two without doing a show, you're letting them down. Stay consistent. Be a part of their everyday. Understand that this is bigger than you. This thing has to move on beyond you. So if you're just not feeling it, or you don't want to do it that day, or you're bored, or you don't feel like it, so what? Do it anyway. Sit down and do your show, because it matters to the people that are listening. So consistency, quality, and investing in your content, to me, is key.
Let me ask you one more, the flip side of that, which is, at what point for you did this hobby, because you don't know if it's going to be successful or not, at what point do you know what, I think I can do this for a living. I can do this as my career, which is not a typical career choice. How did you know?
You and I talked about this in Chicago about a year and a half ago.
I was busy that night, guys, don't worry.
We did. We had a brief conversation about it because I had at the time I
Were you
was
just leaving?
thinking about leaving my teaching career, but I hadn't pulled the plug yet, and so I was mining David for advice at the time.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, wow, the great and powerful him that made it is asking me for advice. That's amazing.
We're gonna incorporate. Stop laughing. That's not funny. That's
No.
the truth.
You know,
Powerful.
It's funny because when I was working full time, I was only able to do the show, and meaning I wasn't doing very many audiobooks. Audiobooks were very scarce because I couldn't focus on it. You know, I had to work. I was working a lot to pay the bills, and I was making really good money in my IT job. And Dogma Debate was doing okay. We were making maybe a few $1,000s a month. Nothing that anybody could live on, but it was there. But we weren't having to spend any of the money. So the money was just kind of growing in this account. And I was like, hey, I could start hiring people to help run the business while I'm at work. And that was the original plan. So we brought some people in, tried to have them paid to run the business side of it, and that didn't work out. It wasn't the right personnel. It wasn't the right people. It wasn't the right strategy for what we needed to do. So that drained most of our funding. And we kind of had to start over. And just as the funding was starting to build back up, I was looking at it going, you know, this is almost enough to live on if my life changed dramatically. I mean, I had a six-figure income. I was doing wonderful. And I was supporting my wife and two kids. And
so for you to leave that, it had to be something pretty impressive.
Well, no. It wasn't quite that way. I wish I could tell you that the money grew so much and we hired all these people and everything blew up. It wasn't like that. What happened was the job that I was in was a contract position. The contract was coming to an end. And the contractor that I was working for really liked me, but had nowhere else for me to go, and said, I'm going to recommend you for this other position at another company. So he recommends me. We have a couple of interviews over the phone. They pick it up. They say, we love you. You passed everything. Do a drug test, and you're on board. So I went to do the drug test. They said, do you submit to a background check? I said, yes. And then I waited. And for weeks and weeks and weeks, no phone calls, nothing. December was coming to an end. This was December 2013 was coming to an end, and I had no idea what I was going to do for a job in January 2014. And I get a phone call on a Saturday night, nonetheless, which is really odd. I get a phone call on a Saturday night around 8:30 at night, and they said, unfortunately, we've looked into your background and discovered that your values are not in line with the values of our company.
No.
I have never been arrested. There's nothing in my background that's questionable. Or that I've ever been caught at, anyway. And so the drug test was not a problem. I don't care that people do, but I happen to just prefer not to. I don't use any recreational drug. No issues at all. I know exactly what it was, just like you know what it is.
Yeah.
And 8 to 9 days before I was supposed to start my job, I didn't have one anymore. And I sat down and I talked with Brandy, and I said, look, I've been unemployed before. We've been through this. I've struggled to find another job. You know what's going to happen. Looking for a job is the hardest job you'll ever have. It's terrifying. And I know that if I do that, I'm going to have to pull away. I'm not going to be able to do the show anymore. I'm not going to be able to focus on audiobooks until I have a stable income anymore. Or we could dive head first. And we could go into this full time and dedicate our lives to this and go all or nothing. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we do the best we can to try to give this thing the best shot we can. Because it's either dive into it full time and make it work, or back out of it and stop doing Dogma Debate. And I'm sitting at an Olive Garden that Saturday night in tears with Brandy over a chicken gnocchi soup, trying to decide if Dogma Debate is going to cease to exist or if this is all I'm going to do for a living. And we talked about it for hours, and came home and did the math and said, okay, that's a $113,000 pay cut. This means going from living a very good life to quite possibly being on some sort of government assistance. Is it worth it? Can we do it? Do the people need us that bad, or are there plenty of people out there doing it? We had a lot to mull over, and at the end of the day, the decision was made to just go for it. And it's been a rough ride. It's been scary at times. We've had to move some things around and struggle a bit, but we honestly feel like we've done the right thing. And December this year, well, I guess January technically, 2016 will be 2 full years that we've made it full-time as activists. And so far it's growing. I mean, we're growing our membership. We're growing our ability to help people, and it's very enlightening. But there's still some struggles. There's still some things we're scrapping to get through. But all in all, I think we've changed enough lives and heard enough feedback that for us, that's the most valuable part.
That's amazing that you made it work. And I think one of the things that I always am impressed by is that every time I hear your name, it's because you're doing something new. You're always in the process of, like, and I mean this in the best way, you're throwing something against the wall to see if it sticks. And with you, more often than not, it does. Like, whatever you try seems to work really well. And I think that's really inspiring, I think, for a lot of people who want to do what you're doing. But, and I think you and I both have a similar background in the sense that we enjoyed doing whatever it is that we did. And it was a hobby. It's something we did. And, like, when we did our real jobs, it was still in the back of our heads. And then, you know, when the opportunity came, you took that chance. That's really neat.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's why I think I'm starting these other projects. Is I want to help as many people as possible. And we've actually just come up with a brand new way. If you don't mind me talking about it for a second. It's just really exciting thing that we're doing. So we've got with our big listening base, we get a lot of people asking us if we can help them with some sort of GoFundMe or an account, and I know you've experienced that as well. You connect with someone and go, hey, this person needs help, and they get help overnight, and their entire life has changed. And you feel really good, and it's awesome, and you're able to help these people, and the secular community rallies around these people, because you're not doing it, and I'm not doing it, but the listeners and the readers are rallying around these people who are in need. And it's amazing to be able to offer someone up to an audience like that, and to see the audience take them under their wing and to take care of them. It's a beautiful thing. But then you do a show like that, and immediately after, we have 7 or 8 emails of other people going through similar situations that think, man, if I can just get on Dogma Debate, or if I can just be mentioned by Friendly Atheist, all my problems will go away.
Right.
And we want to help everybody, but you can't always do that. Well, or can you? That's the next phase of what I'm doing. We're actually developing. So let me back up a little bit. There's a concept for Dogma Debate listeners known as the fourth listener. That's the person that really gets the show. They're a loyal listener. They listen all the time. That's the fourth listener. Then you can be a registered member or a registered fourth listener, and they actually sign up to support the show. We have 3 different accounts they can join. They get behind-the-scenes access, they get live chat during the show, and all these different member benefits. They go to login.dogmadebate.com. They can sign up and interact with us during the show and have a bunch of extra content. When I do an interview with a Christian that has to be edited for some reason, I put the unedited version out there. They live streaming video inside the studio. All kinds of extra content. Well, we've decided that if we hit a certain number of members, we want to start giving that money to a fund to help other people who are confused. So this concept of I'm the fourth listener started to sort of develop into, I did something humanistic today. I helped a lady do this, or I went and volunteered at my local senior center. And then we would encourage them to tweet #IamFourth, because it's kind of a play on this concept of I am second.
Right? Because Jesus is first.
Yeah, it's like first God, then you. I think that's kind of arrogant. The creator of the universe and then you? Really? So our concept is we took the I am fourth mantra of being this I'm the fourth listener, and it sort of developed on its own, organically evolved into this. You know what? There are a lot of things I put before myself. I put humanity, equality, and nature before my own self. And when you put those three things before yourself, humanity, nature, and equality, before yourself, then you can finally say, I am fourth. And so when you do something from a humanist perspective, we want you to brag about it. We want you to share what you've done, because sharing that inspires other people to do something similar. So we would tell people, share what you did today from a humanist perspective and use the hashtag I am fourth. So naturally, we're calling this the I am fourth fund. And it's this basically what we're doing is right now, all of our premium members who sign up, 10% of those proceeds are going into a separate account so that we can grow this money. And when someone comes across our desk like Caitlin or like Richard or anyone else who's going through this issue, we're going to vet the situation, and if they qualify, they're going to get a grant from that fund to help them. Now, we're not a nonprofit, so it's not a donation. You're buying a membership. You're getting content. But our commitment to you is 10% of that money that's going from premium members is going to go to that fund. And once we reach our goal of 1,500 members, what we're going to do is take 10% of all membership proceeds, regardless of what level they are. 10% of all of those proceeds are going to go to the I Am Fourth Fund. And at 1,500 members, we're going to start doing a second Dogma Debate episode every single week. So we want to be able to help as many people as possible. So we're trying to incentivize people to join up as members so that we can dedicate even more time to this.
And if people want to become a member, where can they go?
They go to login.dogmadebate.com.
Awesome. And we'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. It sounds like a neat project, and I hope it works, because I've heard some of those episodes where you bring on people who really need the help. Maybe they got kicked out of their house because they're the atheist coming from a religious family, and they need like some help to stay somewhere because they have nowhere else to go. So if there's a way to get that funding to them, that's always beneficial, without the expectation necessarily that they're going to pay it back or something, but it will help people who need it. So I like that you're taking that initiative.
Yeah, thank you. This kid, Richard, who came on the show last, it was episode 208. Yeah, it was just last week. We had him on, and then we had a local pastor in studio. Richard is a gay teen who came out to his mom, and she basically, because of her culture, the way she was raised in a Mormon household, she tried to, quote, fix him, send him to a camp, send him to therapists, gay reparative therapy, gave him books that told him being gay was a mental disorder. Horrible. And he wants to be an evolutionary biologist. So he started buying books on evolutionary biology, and she wouldn't let him bring those into the house because she said they could have bad spirits in them, and it could open her home up to bad spirits. So he started watching YouTube, and he wanted to see happy gay couples on YouTube because he just wanted to make sure he wasn't broken. She blocked his access to YouTube. Jesus. He started listening to Dogma Debate. She researched it, found out what Dogma Debate was. She blocked his access to iTunes. She even found a way to block Dogma Debate from his iPhone. She was closing him into this world because she thought she was trying to fix him. And even to this day, he's like, I'm not mad at her. She thought she was protecting me. She thought she was saving me. But he emails me this list of stuff that's going on and says, and now they're moving to Utah because they're Mormon. And that's just what Mormons do. They're moving to Utah, and I'm not invited to go with them. I have less than 3 weeks to find a place to live. I've done a bunch of research. I'd love to go to Spokane. It's very secular. There are community colleges there. It's very LGBT friendly. I would love to be able to move to Spokane. I would love to be able to tell Richard, we'll have you on the show, and then do an Ellen DeGeneres move and go, here's $3,000, you get to go to Spokane, right? But we don't have that funding. We don't have the money to do that. So what we did is we brought him on. We helped him create a GoFundMe account. He put his goal at $1,500. That'd be enough for a plane ticket. Everything he owns can fit into 2 bags, and he can get an apartment, or not an apartment, but rent a room from someone in Spokane next to a community college and start taking classes and look for a job.
And it
so
worked?
He came on with a goal of $1,500, and 99 people in 7 days. His GoFundMe account's up to $2,736.
That's
awesome.
Fantastic.
And being able to do something like that for Richard blows me away, because the secular people in this community are so caring. They're so giving.
I think that's the
money
thing
that they're donating.
I think that's the thing that, your show provides, and a lot of these atheist resources provide. People want to get, they want to be part of this community. They want to help out in some way, and you're giving them the vehicle to do it with, which is always helpful. David, we'll have links to all this stuff in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time tonight. We appreciate everything you do. And we'll have links to all of that. Thank you, David Smalley, for Dogma Debate.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the podcast for FriendlyAtheist.com. This episode was taped at Cinnamon Sound Studios in Aurora, Illinois, and the music was written and performed by Brad Chagdis. If you like what you're hearing, please consider making a contribution at patreon.com/Hemant, that's He-Man T. We appreciate your support. I'm Hemant Mehta.
And I'm Jessica Blumke. We hope you'll join us next time.